All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are strapping in and blasting off into one of the most adrenaline-pumping, high-stakes sci-fi universes ever conceived. We're talking about Horizon Rider. We're going to completely break down the mechanics, the deeply fascinating lore, and the pure, unadulterated kinetic energy of a world where humanity's survival literally depends on going as fast as humanly possible. Get ready, because I promise you, this is a wild ride from start to finish.
So picture this. You've got a universe where the gods are entirely real. But here's the catch. They don't want your worship. They don't want your beautifully constructed temples or your quiet reverence. Nope. They demand pure entertainment. They want a spectacle. Centuries ago, humanity actually found itself right on the brink of total annihilation. And to avoid a fiery apocalypse, we struck a desperate last-ditch bargain with this divine pantheon. The gods agreed to spare us, but only on the condition that we participate in the ultimate cosmic spectator sport. It's a terrifying premise, right? But man, it sets the stage perfectly for what's to come.
And that brings us to the stakes. 10 years. That's all we get. Every single decade, humanity is forced to compete in a deadly race against the celestial realms, a grueling gauntlet known as the Celestial Relay. Now, if humanity's champions manage to cross the finish line first, Earth is granted 10 years of unbroken peace and prosperity. You know, the skies are clear, the crops grow, humanity thrives, the whole shebang. But if they lose, a literal continent is wiped off the map forever, just erased. The scale of loss is almost unimaginable, and it just hangs over everyone's heads like a ticking clock as that 10-year deadline approaches.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Cosmic Bargain. Apocalyptic Rules. The sheer scale of this event is brutal and absolute. Think about this. Every single decade, as the relay approaches, the Earth's continents actually physically shift to make room for the games. We're talking whole tectonic plates moving. Then, in the span of just one day, this massive, ever-changing highway made of solid, blinding light called the Bifrost Track just materializes across the globe, cutting straight through mountains and oceans alike. And finally, it all comes down to one race. Humanity fields a team of 5 extraordinary riders to face off against the absolute worst the universe has to throw at us. Demonic entities from the underworld, angelic warmongers from the heavens, the massive leviathans of the deep ocean. One single race. Win or lose a continent.
Moving right along to Section 2, the art of kinetic skiffing. Let's get down on the track.
So what exactly is the sport that decides the survival of billions of people? Well, the core mechanic powering everything out there is something called aura inertia. Riders use these hoverboards, known as skiffs, but they aren't fueled by gas or batteries or some high-tech anti-gravity engines. It's actually an intricate magic system. Your speed increases based on your adrenaline, your synchronization with your teammates, and the sheer audacity of your tricks on the track. It brilliantly illustrates how, in this universe, raw human emotion and hype directly fuel physical velocity. Basically, the braver you are, the faster you go. If you hesitate, your engine literally dies.
And just to really emphasize the kinetic danger here, 300. We're talking 300 miles per hour. This isn't some casual cruise down a shiny light bridge. This intense, full-contact hoverboard combat and racing is happening at an agonizing 300 miles an hour. At that speed, hitting the air feels like hitting a brick wall. Actually, scratch that. It feels like solid concrete. One wrong move, one slight miscalculation or momentary lapse in focus, and it is instantly game over. The physical toll on the riders' bodies is immense. Every single second of the race is an absolute fight for survival. Which brings us to Section 3. Enter the wild card, Taiga Jin. Every great sports story, especially one with apocalyptic stakes, needs an underdog, right? Someone who completely bends the rules. And that is Taiga. He doesn't have noble blood. He definitely hasn't spent his life in elite aura training academies eating perfectly curated meals. What he does have is a rusted-out junk skiff, a doomed clinic, and absolutely zero fear. Taiga is just a 15-year-old delivery boy who crashes the highly exclusive national qualifiers purely because his younger sister's medical clinic is located on a coastline slated for destruction if Earth loses the upcoming relay. He's not racing for glory or fame or money. He's racing to save his family's literal existence. It brings this gritty, desperate reality to a sport that's usually dominated by untouchable elites. To really get this, you have to look at the contrast in styles. You've got the favored prodigy, Renjiro. The guy was genetically groomed for this exact sport. His style is called Aeroflow. His aura is smooth as ice, mathematically perfect, and just incredibly fast on the straightaways. But then you have Taiga's absolute friction.
Taiga's aura is incredibly rough, jagged, and entirely unrefined. Sure, it makes him slower in a straight line, but it completely breaks reality. He can literally grip vertical walls, ride entirely upside down on the underside of the track, and execute terrifying right-angle turns at maximum velocity without losing a single ounce of momentum. It is wild to even picture.
And this chaotic, completely unpolished style leads to a jaw-dropping moment during the qualifiers. There's a sudden track shift, which, by the way, happens all the time with the gods at the controls, and it causes a massive boulder to block the path. The elite riders, trained for perfection, panic and slam on the brakes. But Taiga, he doesn't brake. He uses his absolute friction to drive directly up the falling boulder, literally flinging himself into the upper atmosphere. The source material captures this so perfectly. It says he pulls a forbidden trick that, quote, ignites his aura into a blazing meteor trail. He ends up crashing across the finish line upside down, completely shattering the Academy's historical records. He leaves the government with absolutely no choice but to draft him.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds the team and the track.
Because Taiga obviously cannot save humanity all by himself, he has to cooperate with an incredibly tense team dynamic. To have any hope of winning the Celestial Relay, Earth drafts a squad of absolute misfits, all utilizing very different kinetic aura styles. You've got the Shield Liner, a defensive powerhouse generating dense air walls to block rival attacks. There's the Slipstreamer, the brilliant tactician manipulating air currents to violently slingshot teammates forward. Then you have the Anchor, Renjiro, our elite prodigy. And let me tell you, he absolutely despises Taiga's chaotic, unrefined style. It goes against everything he was taught. But as the trials progress, Renjiro slowly realizes he desperately needs the wild card. Because you simply cannot beat unpredictable, omnipotent gods with predictable perfection. You need a little bit of chaos.
And man, do they need that deeply diverse skill set, because the tracks they are forced to race on are completely insane. One race hurls the riders into a frozen nebula where the track itself is made of collapsing, zero-gravity ice, and a single wrong turn sends you drifting into the freezing void of deep space. Another drops them into a volcanic matrix. The air there is so thick with ash and heat you can't even breathe without using your aura as a constant draining filter. And then there are the shifting canyons, these brutal three-dimensional gauntlets where the very walls close in on you. It just goes to show this isn't just a race of pure speed, it's a deadly, high-speed environmental puzzle designed to break them.
Which leads us to Section 5, why this concept works, the ultimate hype.
So, connecting all of this macro world building to the micro mechanics of the sport, let's look at exactly why this specific blend of sci-fi and sports fiction hooks audiences so deeply. It really comes down to these core elements. You get incredibly visceral 300-mile-per-hour battle racing mechanics that just keep your heart pounding. You've got riders using aura drafts to legally bash their terrifying celestial rivals off the track, pulling off specialized trick moves that trigger literal shockwaves across the stadium. But so, the crucial point is this. It captures the pure sweat and tears hype of an underdog sports story, but it amplifies it infinitely. Because here, a single missed pass or a failed overtake doesn't just mean losing a shiny gold trophy. It means the literal destruction of a hometown, the wiping away of millions of lives. The emotional weight attached to every single gear shift is just monumental. At its core, this is a story about the ultimate clash between raw human willpower and unyielding divine forces. It's about looking at an impossible, completely rigged system and deciding to break the speed limit anyway. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to ponder today. If the gods rigged the game and the survival of your home, your family, was on the line, how hard would you hit the gas? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.